at 11:16. Welcome to the Hindu Temple and Heritage Hall of Toledo. We are very happy that the Hindu Temple and Heritage Hall of Toledo and our community is blessed with so many talented intellectual devotees. One of them is Dr. Parinjaji, who has given number of lectures in the past, and in his series today he is going to deliver his third discourse or the presentation on neuroscience and Hinduism. This presentation is primarily focusing on emotions and their regulations. As a matter of fact, we all know we are in the stage emotions play a key factor in our existence, throughout our existence. Also, no matter how well established or well achieved person you are, when it comes to emotions, emotions play a key role. Dr. Parinja has spent significant time in dealing with these emotions, and especially this is his specialty, and he has been dealing with hundreds and thousands of patients on a regular basis. Let us learn something new, and especially we are in America and we are also dealing with this modern technology. As a physician, he has been attending many conferences all over the globe. So you can see he has updated latest information. Let us welcome Dr. Parinjaji. Rajiv Parinjaji, thank you. God bless you. Please start your presentation.
Thank you, Panditji. You're very kind. So this is my third talk. The first talk was just an introduction. The second talk, we looked at the reward system. We looked a little bit at emotions. We looked at some of the things that go into feeding addiction. And this talk is about emotions. So let's get started with a story. The last time also we started with a story. I think the stories is how we understand things, how we remember things and apply that knowledge. And in Hinduism, there has been a tradition of using stories to teach. And this is important because some of the concepts are very abstract. They are not black and white, and the stories help us to process them. So this story is of three sadhus. These sadhus are in ancient India, and they are working hard. They are meditating. They are doing everything that they have learned in their training to try and find the ultimate goal, which is enlightenment. And they are doing this for many years, and they are discussing, they are learning from each other. And one day, one of those sadhus finds enlightenment. He has found oneness with God, and he is connected with God. He is able to have the knowledge that comes with enlightenment. His two friends are very happy for him. And then they ask him to ask God a question. They say, you are very fortunate and we are happy for you, but we have also been working very hard. Could you please ask God how long it is going to take for us to find enlightenment? And the answer to that question we will do at the end of the talk. And the answer to that has certain very important things that we can learn from about emotions and their regulation. This talk is about emotions and their regulation, but that is not the final goal. This is a temple, and our goal here is, of course, spiritual progress. And emotions and their regulation are just one stop towards that final goal. And I will start with this shlok from Bhagavad Gita, which kind of summarizes the ultimate goal. It says, Devai Hryosha Gunmai Mam Maya Durateya Mamev Ye Prapadyante Maya Metam Tarantite. This is chapter 7, verse 14. And what Shri Krishna is saying is that, my divine energy consisting of the three modes of nature, is very difficult to overcome. We are entrenched in the Maya, but those who surrender unto me cross over it easily. Another translation shows this as the divine veil. It is the veil of Maya which makes us not see that the divine presence is everywhere and is the basis of our existence. We get sucked into the Maya. Emotions, of course, would be considered a part of that Maya, and we are going to try and understand emotions, understand why they are there, what they do to us, how they are beneficial, how they can be harmful, and how we can regulate emotions, the ultimate goal being that when we become good at regulating emotions, we are able to make spiritual progress. We are going to move through the Maya onto enlightenment, closer to enlightenment. So the last time we talked about the reward system. The reward system is dealing with the primary problem. If you have an animal that is living in its habitat in the jungle, wherever, that animal needs to do certain things to be able to survive. It needs to, for example, want food, move towards food, eat food. If you have an animal where the reward system is not functioning because they have damage to the reward system, those animals die, because even if there is food, they won't eat it. That is the first problem. Any organism must move towards and use the things it needs to survive. So if there's a monkey living in a jungle, the monkey needs to feel hungry, feel the urge to get a banana, and get a banana. The first problem is solved by the reward system. But now we have a second problem. The second problem is that monkey may not be the only monkey that wants the banana. When the monkey approaches the banana, maybe another monkey comes towards the banana. At that time, this monkey needs to have a mechanism to deal with this problem. This is the second issue. We are not the only ones wanting the things we want. We are navigating a world where other people and other living creatures are also coming into interactions with us, which can sometimes be difficult. And last time we took the story of the lion. The lion is my favorite animal. We talked about the fact it's the king of the jungle. It's very lazy. That's really why it's my favorite animal. But of course, lions are known for their ferocity. They are known for how aggressive they can be. When a lion is challenged, the lion does many things, all of which happen together. The lion can roar loudly. You can hear it 5 miles away. It is showing its teeth. Its muscles are tense, heart is racing, and it is showing aggression and the willingness to attack, to defend its territory. This response is preserved across the animal kingdom, and we experience the same response. When we are unhappy with a particular situation, we feel tense, we feel like being intimidating and threatening and defeating the people who are getting in the way of our goals. And we'll take an example. I have this fictional patient, Jack, and one day, he is wanting to go to a work party. He is getting late because he's going with his wife and the wife's running a little late. So he is getting a little irritated. And as he's getting irritated, he is finding that his muscles are tensing up. He's also calling his wife, and as he's calling her, he's getting a little louder. Like, can you hurry up? Like, this is taking too long. And look at his hands. The hands are doing the same thing. Heart is racing. And then something seems to be happening to his memory. All of a sudden, he is recalling things that reinforce his anger, but he's not able to recall anything that would take his anger away. He's not recalling anything good that happened. He forgets the surprise birthday party. He forgets the great cruise vacation they had, but he remembers the last time that she was late. He remembers the time before that she was late. In fact, he remembers the time when he was going to be his best friend's wedding sort of best man, and she was late. This is too much. I can't deal with this. Going to have to do something about it. So he's feeling pretty motivated. And we see that this response and the lion's response is very similar. The same things are happening. And the human brain is very efficient in the way it uses energy and processes information. So if you take a computer, the computers have a hard disk which has all the data that is stored for the computer. They have a RAM, and what the computer does is, if you use a particular piece of information from the hard disk, that gets put into the RAM. The RAM has only so much storage. As you keep putting information into the RAM, the computer keeps removing the oldest information. That is somewhat inefficient. Human brain does it very differently. So if you think about your brain and your memory, if you think that you have a storage of DVDs of all the events that have happened in your life, and they're all sitting there in your brain, can you play any DVD that you want at any time? It is a little tricky. You can't just pick it. It depends on what you're feeling. Our memories are tagged with emotions. They are stored in the way that we were feeling. When you're feeling a particular way, the brain is efficient. It doesn't have to look through all the DVDs. Only those DVDs which are tagged with the feeling that you're feeling are readily available. So at the time that his wife is running late and he's upset, he can remember every time that she was running late. He can also remember every time that he was upset with her. What he cannot remember is the times that things were good. And when he thinks about the future, it looks like, this is going to be difficult. I'm always going to be unhappy with this situation. This situation has got to change. I have to do something about it. And this is the interesting thing about emotion. Emotions seem like they have always been present. At the time that you're feeling miserable, you remember, my life has always been very difficult. Things have not really worked out the way I wanted. And my future looks pretty hard. Things are not going to work out. And when you're feeling happy, you think, I have had a pretty good life. And I'm probably going to continue to have a good life. So emotions are temporary, but they seem like they have always been present and they will always be present. It's remarkable how strong that belief can be at the time that you're feeling the emotion that you're feeling. So I'm going to talk a little bit about emotions in Hinduism. The term emotion is not frequently used in scriptures. There are terms like bhav and ras which have been used in Hinduism. I think what I'm talking about, the closest thing to that is called chitta. And if you look at Patanjali and the Yoga Sutra, the first sentence of the Patanjali Yoga Sutra is Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. That is, yoga is the ending of the change of chitta. Chitta has been, there is no equal term in English to chitta, but chit can be translated as mind or as consciousness. And I tell people, I'm the perfect yogi because I never change my mind about anything. So, but that's not the point. The point of chitta is that as we get into an emotional state, the chitta changes, and when we are established in yoga, we are able to have this state of equanimity, of sameness, where the emotions don't change the way we are feeling with the intensity that they normally do to somebody who has not practiced yoga. So emotions can be classified into negative emotions and positive emotions. We will talk about both. We'll spend more time with negative emotions because they're more problematic. Negative emotions arise for two reasons. One is that things went differently from the way we wanted or expected. Something went wrong, something that we had not wanted happened. The other reason they arise is that other people that we are interacting with express emotions. And when we try and study emotions in neuroimaging, you can put somebody in a scanner and you can produce an emotion and you can see where in the brain it is happening. The most reliable way to produce an emotion is to show the person who is the subject a picture of a face with an emotional expression. And that, to me, is remarkable, because you see the picture of somebody you don't know. That person is never going to meet you. Those pictures, it's a standard picture set which is over 30 years old. But you have an emotional reaction reliably. So if you see somebody frowning at you in a picture, you have an emotional reaction. So that's the first piece. The logic that this person is not frowning at me. I have never met this person. This person doesn't even know about my existence, doesn't matter. When we see somebody frowning at us, we have an emotional reaction. And it gets better. So they try to see, do we recognize the frown, and is that how we have an emotional reaction? Do we understand it? So they did an experiment in which they put the picture on a screen, and they would change the picture faster and faster and faster. And if you change the picture in 300ths of a second, 80% of the people will not know that the picture changed. If you ask them, did the picture change? They say no. But they still have an emotional reaction. They did not recognize, because the back of the brain where the vision is kind of interpreted did not have the time to recognize that the picture changed. But the emotional brain still woke up and said, somebody is frowning at me, so I need to have an emotional reaction. That is vital, because emotions arise even before we know what is causing the emotion, even before we have an understanding of why the emotion arose. This is a primal part of the brain, this is down below, and it comes into play before we recognize it. And therefore, if you say to somebody or say to yourself, you know, you should not feel that way, that is illogical, because you're going to feel what you're going to feel. There is nothing you can do to prevent yourself from beginning to feel what you feel. Emotions will arise automatically. You can't stop them from arising. That is not to say that you can't do anything about them once you know that they've arisen. But it's illogical to say, you know, you should not have felt that way. It makes no sense. From a neuroscience point of view, there is nothing you can do to stop an emotion from arising in the first place. So what are emotions? How do we kind of explain it? Well, so emotions, first of all, feel something. We feel something. Negative emotions don't feel good. The emotions can be directed towards outside, but they can also be directed towards inside. Sometimes you are feeling angry with other people. They should not have done this. I'm going to take care of this. I'm going to challenge them. I'm going to confront them. But sometimes you are having an emotional reaction that is negative towards your own self, where you're feeling guilt, you're feeling shame, you are feeling self-loathing, you are blaming yourself. Why do I always do that? Why do I always feel? Why do I always put myself in this situation? So they can go both ways. So emotions are stock responsive. They are like software which is installed in all of our brain. When the right trigger is there, the emotion gets triggered. They affect our physiology, so they can make us breathe faster, increase our blood pressure, our heart race. They affect our motivation. We can feel like acting. Anxiety is one of the most motivating emotions there is. We want to get away immediately when we experience anxiety. They can also affect our memory, as we discussed. Emotions arise automatically, and they are difficult, if not impossible, to turn off even when they start. Emotions can arise by an external trigger, but sometimes they can arise because we recall something, because our mind is wandering and it picked up something which was emotional. It doesn't always have to be external. The main drive behind emotional reactions is that they can change our behavior in a way that is adaptive for that particular situation. So for example, in the case of the monkey, when the monkey is approaching the banana, another monkey is approaching the banana, this monkey might feel a little scared of the other monkey because the other monkey is bigger. That allows this monkey to not get into a fight with the other monkey, protect itself and get away and keep itself safe. If this monkey is the bigger monkey, he might show aggression. He might show, look, don't you dare take my banana. I am the big guy here. That allows this monkey to minimize the risk that his banana is going to be taken away by the other monkey. So there are, there's a reason that emotions exist, because they allow us to behave in ways that can be helpful and adaptive. And this is just like a grid to understand different emotions and what they do. So the first one I'm going to look at, which is a negative emotion, is anger. It exists on a spectrum. You can experience annoyance, anger, to being in a complete rage. When that happens, your attention is drawn to things that someone did wrong. He should have done this, he should not have done this. That's wrong. You also remember other things that this person did wrong or somebody else did wrong. And then you have the motivation. You feel like teaching this person a lesson, doing something that intimidates them by showing them aggression and threatening them with consequences. And you also have the urge to find other people. You go and talk to other people. Did you know he said this? And you want to create a team of people who can be with you when you're dealing with this person. The same kind of thing can be done for other negative emotions. If you take anxiety, you are feeling anxious, you think about what can go wrong, and you remember past instances of things that went wrong, and you have the urge to get away from the situation that is producing anxiety. You want to escape. And if you remember the reward system, all the drive to do something is driven by the reward system. If you can actually escape anxiety, that can be highly rewarding. You feel much better. Thank God, this finished. And that can sometimes be a problem because it can reinforce that kind of behavior. Sadness is a very different emotion from the other emotions. Because when you're feeling sad, instead of being motivated, you slow down. You feel unmotivated. You feel that you don't want to do anything. But you think and you ruminate, and you are interpreting everything that happened and going over it again and again in your mind. And you avoid doing anything more, particularly in the direction of what you've done which made you sad in the first place. And that is helpful because you're not wasting energy doing things which could eventually not work and make you feel sad. Then of course there's loneliness, which makes you want to reach out to people and connect with them. And you remember all the good times you had with people. There's guilt, where you feel upset about the things that you did that you shouldn't have done, or you feel upset about the things you think you should have done which you didn't do, and you have the urge to avoid that in the future. Guilt, of course, is internally directed. So emotions are funny. When you're feeling what you're feeling, it feels very real. And it feels that what we're feeling is absolutely right. And to kind of make sense of that, I'll take this story of two brothers, and we'll look at many scenarios. So there are two brothers who are not getting on. They have been arguing and they have been fighting. And one brother invites the other brother to his Diwali party. And that party doesn't go well. They get into an argument, and the older brother pushes the younger brother. So they go home afterwards, and the younger brother is talking with his wife and his friends, and he's saying, I don't understand this. I mean, I know he's angry, I know he's upset, but you can't just push somebody. That's not acceptable. I mean, I understand you're upset, you might want to shout at somebody, you might disagree, but you can't push somebody. Okay? Second scenario. The two brothers, same party. This time, the older brother has just shouted at him. They go home. The younger brother is like, I don't understand. You invite me to a party. You can't just shout at somebody like this. This is not acceptable. I mean, I understand that we are not getting on. You want to have a conversation. It might be serious, but you can't just shout at somebody. Okay? Third scenario. They go to the party, same brothers. This time, no shouting, but they have a conversation which is serious. The younger brother goes home and he's thinking, I don't understand this. You invited me to a Diwali party and you're having this kind of argument with me at the Diwali party. If you are feeling upset with me, just don't invite me to the Diwali party. Why would you do that? And you can see how this is going. Third time, they don't invite him to the Diwali party, and he's like, I know we had an argument, but if you're having a Diwali party, you're inviting everybody, you could invite your brother, and everybody's going to talk about it. So it doesn't matter what they do. You can always put a spin and say, the one level lower would have been okay, but this is unacceptable. In theory, you could put the opposite spin and say, well, you know, my brother invited me to the Diwali party and he yelled at me, and thank God he didn't push me. But we never think like that. We never think like that, because the emotions make us just angry, and we feel justified in feeling what we're feeling. We feel that the other person is wrong. It's very hard, but if you're feeling that emotion and you find yourself in a place where you are able to feel a little comfortable and confident and curious, you can say, hey, what if something else would have happened, and what would I have felt in that situation? Is there something about this situation which is better than what could have been worse? And maybe if I think about that, I'll feel better. But we'll talk about you know, how to do that. It's not easy, but there are tricks that you can use. Emotions are used to convey information. So I did get myself a glass of water, but I could ask one of you, could you please get me a cup of water? I would appreciate it. Or I could say, could you please get me a cup of water? I will appreciate it. Could you please get me a cup of water? I'll appreciate it. Could you please get me a cup of water? I'll appreciate it. Now, if somebody goes and complains to Panditji, you know, this guy was yelling at me and he said this, I'll say to Panditji, Panditji, all I said was, could you please get me a cup of water, and I'll appreciate it. That's what I said. The words are exactly the same. But the words are just a part of that communication. My expression, my tone of voice communicate emotion. I am using emotion to convey what I'm feeling, and you will receive that emotion as information about my state of mind and the urgency of my request and what I'm feeling about you in that interaction. So emotions are, you will use that emotion as information. I'm using emotion to convey that information. When we feel an emotional reaction, we behave in ways to avoid negative emotions. So the guy who failed his test says, you know, when I failed my test, I felt absolutely awful. I don't want to feel that way, so I'm not going to, you know, take this test without preparation this time. So I want to avoid that negative emotion. If you're feeling a particular emotion from a situation and you go into the next situation, you still feel the same emotion, and it can spill over and affect your appraisal and motivation in the subsequent and unrelated events. So as an example, you know, a guy comes home from work after having problems at work. He's upset about his work. And his wife says to him, you know, we have new neighbors next door, and we're going to talk a little bit about this in a minute. Depending on what he's feeling from work, he's going to want to do it or not want to do it. Because when he's stressed out, he just doesn't want to deal with the new situation. Negative emotions can go into a spiral. You can go from one emotion to the next emotion to the next emotion. So first, you are feeling scared because maybe your job is insecure. You are feeling that you might lose your job. Then you're feeling angry that you are not appreciated for the work that you have done, and people don't seem to know how much value you are bringing and how much problems they're going to have if they let go of you. And then you're feeling sad because you're going to be without a job and it's going to be hard, and this is just a very difficult situation to be in. And then you go back to feeling angry, sad, anxious, and that cycle can go on. The reason it's important to be aware of emotions is because they spoil the quality of our lived experience. If your lived experience isn't great, there's a very good chance that there is, you know, negative emotions just playing in your life and going into that spiral. Ending negative emotions can be very rewarding, and that is particularly true for anxiety. And if you have the opportunity to end a negative emotion quickly by an easy way, that may not always be the best idea. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. Positive emotions are a little different. Positive emotions often don't have a specific goal. So positive emotions can be things like happiness, gratitude, serenity, joy. There are others. People ask the question, why am I not happy? That's one way to ask it. Let's try a different way. We can ask, why are you able to be happy in the first place? What's the point of that? In the design that nature gave us, that God gave us, it could have been that we always feel miserable and we only feel happy when we do certain things that allow us to survive. But that's not how it is. We are able to be happy. And the people who have looked into this from a scientific standpoint, they came up with this idea that positive emotions exist because they allow us to behave in ways which broaden and build our social connections and our skills. They have a purpose. They make us open to experience. When I'm feeling happy, I'm open to trying new things. They make us learn new things and be open to the idea of learning new things. Now, in this world that we live in, where we have a lot more control about how things work, it seems like certain things make us happy. So if I were to get a lot of money in a stock investment that I made, I would be happy, right? But happiness by this definition is a little different. That will make me feel very good, but by this definition, that isn't really happiness. And I'll explain that with the story of Jack. We talked about Jack and his new neighbors. So Jack is my fictional patient, he's not real. He is an investment banker, he is working in an investment bank, but he's also making his own investments. So one morning he thinks the oil price is going to move, so he makes some bets about oil price movement. He goes to work, he's busy at work. He comes back and he sees that the oil price has moved in the way that he thought, and he's actually made $2,000. And of course, how's he feeling? Pretty good. Yes. And his wife comes and says to him, honey, the house next door that was up for sale? I think we have new neighbors moving in. Let's go and say hello. And he's like, no, leave me alone. Let me look at what happened today. If I can replicate this kind of sort of return every day, we're not even going to live in this house. I don't care about the new neighbors. So I would argue that though he's feeling pretty good, he isn't really happy at this time. He's fixated on replicating the large reward that he has got. And this kind of behavior, not necessarily in the case of investments, is on the same spectrum as addiction. What you're getting you really like, but you don't really care about anything else. The same situation could happen when he's had an argument at work and he's had problems at work and he comes in and he's like, I'm just spent today. I'm not feeling like meeting anybody new. So negative emotions also make him not want to broaden and build. The middle path is when he comes home, it's a normal day. He's had a good day at work. And his wife says, let's go meet our new neighbors. He says, yeah, sure, yeah, let's go check them out. Let's see if they need anything. That is the middle place where you're happy. Now, this middle thing is touched on by some of our saints. So, Kabir Das Ji, in one of his bhajans called Haman Hai Ishq Mastana, in that, he says, it says, Kabira Ishq ka mata, dui ko dur kar dil se, chalna rah nazuk hai, Haman sar bhoj bhari kya. So what he's saying in the last line is that we are walking a delicate path and we don't want to keep a heavy load on our heads when we are walking this delicate path. Happiness doesn't come from being very negative. It also doesn't come from achieving really big. That can make you feel good. But the path to spiritual progress where happiness is a part of it is a middle path. It's a delicate path, and carrying heavy loads doesn't really help you move in that direction. I just wanted to touch on the fact that not all emotions are individual. There are collective emotions, emotions that happen when we are with people, uh, as a group, and we bond with people, and that particularly happens when we feel that we are under attack. So, I've been to few meetings. As Hindus, we sometimes feel that we are under attack. Are we under attack? Yeah, I mean, absolutely. But I had a friend who actually is a Christian, and she's very interested in sort of missionary work. And one of her posts was that Christians are always under attack. Are they under attack? Yeah. So then I thought about it. Is there any group, religious, ethnic, that can say, hey, everybody loves us. We are never under attack? I don't think so. Your appraisal of how much attack you're under can be wrong. I worry about the Ukrainians who did not think they would be under attack 1 year ago. They are a lot more under attack than they thought they would be. But the point is, when we feel we are under attack, we talk to people. It actually feels very good to be connected with people. There's a bonding, there's a band of brothers when we think that we are together when we are under attack. We feel that we are being vilified by the people who are attacking us. They don't understand us, they don't respect us, and we want to do something about it. I think it's very important to protect yourself when you're under attack. But it's worth knowing that this kind of thing comes into play, because I do believe that there would almost not be a conflict in the world where, if we could override this process, we are under attack, we are together, we must do something to teach the people who are attacking us a lesson, because they disrespect us, they are minimizing our culture, our quality. If you could find a way to work around it, that would be lead to world peace. My prescription for world peace. Regulating emotions, I think this is the key. And here you see this. The person at the bottom is the treasurer. That's your reward system. The reward system is constantly checking how things are working, what you might do that might be helpful. When things don't work, emotions come into play and make us behave in a way that allows us to get the reward back. And humans, I mean, our lives are so complicated. We also have to have self-regulation. That is new. That exists in the frontal part of the brain. Our lives got so complicated as our social system became complex that the emotional response is no longer acceptable. If I get into a problem at work and I feel like maybe pushing somebody, yelling at them, shouting at them, am I able to do any of those things? Absolutely not. If I did that, that would lead to a lot of problems. And therefore, I have developed, with every other human that there is, the ability to regulate my emotions. And this, if you put people in a scanner, there's a back and forth. You can put them in a scanner, you can produce an emotional reaction. And then you can have them control their behavior like playing a game of cards. You create a situation where they're losing by somebody else cheating. They have an emotional reaction. To stop themselves from acting, the frontal part of the brain lights up. There's blood being used, oxygen being used there, and that stops you from behaving in the way that you felt like behaving. That is emotional regulation. That ability is new in evolutionary terms. It is not perfect. It is also impaired at times of stress. It's impaired at times when we are sleep deprived, hungry, tired, and other situations. So how do you regulate emotions? The first thing in regulating emotions is to know what you're feeling. And you would say to me, I always know what I'm feeling. That is not true. You always feel what you're feeling, but you often don't know what you're feeling. You will only know what you're feeling when you ask yourself the question, what am I feeling? And you can say, oh, I'm angry. But you can be angry, you can act in anger, but you may not notice that you're angry. You may not notice that you're feeling sad. So until you ask yourself the question, what am I feeling? You don't know what you're feeling. That is the first step to regulating emotions. Stop and name the emotion that you're feeling. When you're not feeling right, you're feeling like, I'm just like not in the right frame of mind, right mood. Stop. What am I feeling? When you put people in a scanner and you make them do this exercise, you notice that you cannot name the emotion without engaging the front of your brain. The naming, the language is stored here somewhere. So to name the emotion has to briefly stop, and then you know what you're feeling. The moment you know what you're feeling, you have to validate it. You have to say it is okay to feel what I'm feeling. Because you might say, oh, I'm feeling angry. Why do I get angry with this person? This person doesn't care about me. So now you're getting into a second emotion where the anger from being externally directed is becoming internally directed. We don't want to go down that route. You first say, it's okay, I'm upset with this person. That's okay. Validate the emotion. It is never wrong to feel what you're feeling, because there is nothing we can do to stop ourselves from beginning to feel what we're feeling. We're going to feel what we're going to feel. Be kind to yourself. Don't blame yourself for feeling what you're feeling. We discussed how negative emotions go in a spiral. To interrupt the spiral, you have to be kind to yourself. And you must absolutely, this is vital, resist the urge to do something that immediately changes the negative emotion. So some people say, I need a drink. Well, nobody ever needs a drink. You like to drink and that can change your emotions. That is a bad idea. Don't go shopping, eating, and some people say, this is a thing. I need to use some marijuana, it eases me out. I need to go get some Percocets. I mean, these days, if you get a Percocet, that could be the last pill you ever take, because they're contaminated with fentanyl, and people are dying from a single pill in large numbers, particularly young people. So you want to resist, you want to let the emotion run its course, you want to manage it, you don't want to do something that immediately makes it go away. That is a bad idea. Our emotions become habitual, and this is the hardest piece, because I sometimes, teach dealing with difficult situations at work with patients or with people, and I can kind of teach it so well, I can do it perfectly and hit it out of the park. But when I actually am in a difficult situation, that is harder, because the situation is now real. But when I am dealing with people who are in emotional situations with family members, with their children, with their parents, with their brothers and sisters, that is the hardest. You can teach them, they can learn it, they can understand it, but they still do the same things over and over again. Because we have a part of the brain which sits right behind the reward system called the dorsal striatum, which automates everything that we do. It also automates how we feel in different situations and how we respond in those situations. If you have always had a problem with a family member, maybe some people will be having a problem with their mother who's always invalidated, and they get upset. And the next time they want to do something different, it's going to be very hard because you've done it 1,000 times before. The next time your mother says something that triggers you, same emotional reaction, same argument, same discussion. So it's worth being aware that emotional exchanges with people who we have had emotional exchanges with many times are automated. And to change them, it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a whole new plan, which you're going to have to rehearse in your mind many times. You're going to have to know that when I say this is what they're going to say, and this is what I'm going to feel. But at that time, my plan is to say this. After this, I'll say this. You have to rehearse it almost like a play if you're going to go into situations where you've been emotional before. When you are in a negative emotional state, particularly one that is making you physiologically very aroused, one of the things you can take control of is your breathing. When we are emotionally aroused, our breathing becomes fast and erratic. It is irregular and the rhythmicity is lost. We can be This is unhelpful. In fact, you can create an high anxiety situation just by changing your breathing to this level. If you take control of your breathing and breathe in a regular rhythmic fashion, that allows you to change the emotional state. This is one of the most powerful tools that there is. And in our system of Hinduism, in yoga, we have pranayama, breathing exercises, which if you practice, allow us to pay better attention and take control of our thinking. I had a TV interview and the journalist who was interviewing me, they had this survey where they found that 27% of Americans are unable to function because of the distress that they are experiencing, anxiety, depression. And she said, somebody gave advice about breathing. Do you think that's a good idea? And she was so surprised that that could be considered to be good advice. It is good advice. It may seem like, how does breathing affect my emotion? It does in a way that would be surprising if you see the amount of change it will make to your emotions. This takes practice and it's worth doing. Develop a curiosity about the emotion. Can you get to the point where you say, this is what I'm feeling, and they say, oh, I wonder what made me so angry? I wonder what made me so upset about this? Now you are moving from the duke, the emotional region, to the frontal region, because to understand it from a distance, you're going to have to engage the frontal part of your brain. That is the part of the brain that regulates emotions. Of course, we discussed emotional reactions can become habitual, and emotional reaction can override self-regulation and make self-regulation work for emotion. Is the frontal lobe always able to manage the emotion? The answer is no. Sometimes we will find a situation where the frontal lobe is actually working as a slave of the emotions. And the story I take is, like imagine a Godfather-like situation. Gangsters, they're meeting, they're upset, they are disagreeing on something. The meeting doesn't go well, and one gangster feels that he has to eliminate the other gangster. He's feeling the emotion. I've been disrespected, I've been insulted, I need to do something about it. But what does he do? Well, he does nothing at that time. He plans for the next opportunity. So his emotion, he's checking his emotional reaction, but he's using his planning ability to plan for the future. The planning is working under the emotion. The emotion is driving the planning. And people do that too. There's a story that I heard, this lady who's upset with the fact that her son married against her wishes. But everybody in her family says this marriage is okay. So she accepts the daughter-in-law and pretends that everything is fine. But in her heart, she's still upset. So she says, I'm going to do something to make sure that this marriage doesn't work the way that he wants it. This is emotions overriding your self-regulation and using your planning ability to get you the aims that you want. We don't want to be in this situation. We want the emotions to be checked. The goal, of course, is spiritual progress. And where in this world of emotions is the Maya thin, where we can make a transition to enlightenment and spiritual progress. And to understand that, there are these two emotions that we need to understand. Pride and humility. America is a proud culture. We are encouraged to take pride in where we belong, our sports teams, our states. Now, pride has been classified into two types, authentic and hubristic. Authentic pride is when we have done something where we can say, I'm proud of the fact that I played tennis so well. I have worked hard at it and I won that match. And then there is hubristic pride, where you could say, well, I'm proud of the fact that I'm so good looking. Well, you're good looking, that's incidental. There's nothing that you necessarily did to be particularly good looking. Or you can say, well, I'm proud to be a Hindu. Well, that's it. Yeah, it's a good thing that you're a Hindu, but you were maybe born into Hinduism. There's nothing you particularly did. So, pride can be good for mental health. Both kinds can be. Authentic pride is better than hubristic pride. The things that you did where you can say I'm proud of it is good. Pride is not not particularly conducive to spiritual progress? Humility is. Humility is also of two kinds. One is a very unpleasant kind of humility. It is the defeated humility. You know, maybe you had a proposal at work and it was shot down because it was a bad proposal and everybody agreed, and you felt defeated and you felt humiliated. It's not a pleasant feeling. But the funny thing is, you can also experience humility if you are exceptionally successful. So I looked at some Nobel Prize speeches. I think I probably saw 5 or 6 for Nobel Peace Prize. Every single speech had, "I accept this prize with humility" in the first 3 sentences. Why can't they say, "I am proud of the work that I did that allowed me to get a Nobel Prize"? Because that would be unseemly. That would be a little inappropriate. A Nobel Prize for Peace is a very big thing, and you accept it with humility because it's so big. That humility is a good feeling. Very different from the defeated humility that you feel, even though both of them take you away from pride. Humility takes us closer to spiritual progress. And in my mind, this is the ultimate shortcut to making spiritual progress. You don't have to work and achieve this and achieve that to become proud of your success and ultimately achieve so much that you are able to find humility. You can start with humility. We'll go back to our story. 3 monks, 3 sadhus, they are meditating for many years in the hope of enlightenment. One of them finds enlightenment and he is able to speak to God. So the other 2 are very happy for him and they say, you know, please ask God how much longer we have before we find enlightenment. So the sadhu says, okay. So he asks God and God gives him the answer. So he goes to his first friend and says, God said that you will find enlightenment in another 2 years of good meditation, if you meditate for 2 more years. So this guy says, what? 2 more years? I've been working so hard, this is too much. 2 more years? I thought I was almost there. So he goes to the second one, and the second one, he says, you know, God says you have 20 more years of meditating. And the second one says, 20 more years? God is so kind. I am thankful to God for his kindness that I will be enlightened in 20 more years. And he is instantly enlightened. Why is that? Because when he feels grateful and accepting of God's wishes in a way that is complete, that is enlightenment. Acceptance is enlightenment. Our brains dismiss the outcomes that we are getting in our life, the things that are happening in our life. This is wrong, this is bad, this should not have happened, that should not have happened, she should have done this, he should have done this, not have done this. And that is producing emotional responses. But when we come to an acceptance, that emotional response is tempered, it's kind of going down and it disappears. Acceptance is not easy. You can't rush it, you can't force it. But as you practice meditation, acceptance is easy. When you put a meditator who has done it for many years in a scanner and you put them in a situation where they get upset, there are all kinds of tricks that can make them upset. They seem to recover very quickly from it. Their emotional reaction is very short compared to somebody who has not meditated. Acceptance is not permanent. You can get to a state of acceptance and it can go, it can come and go, and that's okay. If you can't accept what you're feeling, you can accept that you can't accept, and that's okay too. That is the first step to regulating emotions. I'm not able to regulate my emotions. I'm feeling really upset. I would like to, but I'm failing to, and that's okay too. Well, I have taken something else and accepted that. And that will allow my emotional reaction to spiral down, and eventually I may come to an acceptance of what I'm feeling. And I'll stop here and take any questions. that is a difficult question to answer because it depends on the extent of that traumatic brain injury. Traumatic brain injury as a term, different people will have different levels of damage to their brain. I am not aware of studies of pranayama for patients with traumatic brain injury. Generally, pranayama is helpful, and on balance, I would say probably would not hurt. It would probably help, but it's just hard to make a recommendation specifically like that.
What would you recommend to a person who's chronically angry about everything, although they may be successful in many ways, but they just seem to be upset about everything in their life all the time?
Yeah. So, that is them being unable to sort of regulate their emotions, which are affecting the quality of their life. I would say the goal is to have ultimately an improved quality of life, and that goal we have to agree with that person. Do you want to have better quality of life? Well, if you do, then you're going to have to regulate emotions. And I would say again, a lot of angry people, they are angry because of the way their childhood has gone. They have been mistreated and maybe rejected, and they deal with that with anger. And once you get into that habit, it doesn't matter what you achieve. You can be super successful, way more than you had imagined, but that habit will stay and you will be angry and resentful. And there is a therapist, Dan Gilbert in England, who does compassion-focused therapy. And he says, when you have a lack of compassion, and his research kind of supports that, in your childhood, you have to start there. You have to learn to be compassionate to yourself. Even start by forgiving yourself for being angry, recognizing that you're angry, saying it's okay to begin to be angry, and that's how your anger will eventually begin to go down. And again, it's not going to be immediate. It's going to be a process that's going to take practice and time. But it's when the goal is that you want to improve your quality of life, which is being affected by the anger which is persistent, and you buy into it, you have a kind of way forward. Yes.
All of these emotions are needed for survival, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yes. So the emotions are needed for survival, and I think one of the points I probably should have made is that our quality of life also exists in an emotional realm. When we find purpose and meaning in our lives, that is happening in the emotional part of the brain. We feel that there is something worthy, something that we have to try towards. So if we are having a good quality of life, that is also emotional. So we don't want to dismiss emotions. We want to regulate negative emotions. We want to become skilled at that, and we want to develop and grow positive emotions and stay in that. Positive emotions in the kind of world that we live in they allow us to do well. And negative emotions, of course, have a very important role. So if you imagine a person, the guy's taking a walk in the jungle, in a forest, beautiful day, and he's feeling happy. Great. If he's somebody who's unable to turn happiness off when it needs to be turned off, that would be a problem. So he sees a bear running towards him. Well, this is the time to stop being happy, be very scared, pay full attention to the fact that the bear is running towards you, and do something to save your life. If I'm still going to be happy, beautiful bear, well, I'm sorry, you're not going to be able to survive and leave behind, other children. So yeah, negative emotions exist because they allowed us to behave in ways that help us. That is the reason. But they get in the way of our quality of life. They get in the way of the complex, of navigating the complex society we live in. And they get in the way of spiritual progress. So a person who's always angry, they can pray, they can, until the anger is gone, they're not going to be able to progress spiritually. Yeah.
Sometimes the opposite party can create negative emotions because they start talking without thinking.
Yeah.
Like, okay, they might go to politics.
Yeah.
That's another example.
Yeah.
In politics, somebody might bring up the prior president,
Yeah.
and somebody might get angry because
Yeah. My joke is like, do you support the party that is trying to destroy our country, or do you try support the other party that's trying to destroy our country? for everybody, the other party is trying to destroy the country. So that is there. And so, the parts of the brain that we have, where we have a reward system, we have an emotion system, we have a self-regulation system, they have the same. And the next talk is how to deal with that. The next talk is communication. It's like almost like a game of chess. Which are the pieces which move themselves, and how can you navigate your own brain as well as the other person's brain to communicate to them what you want to get through to them. It's not always possible. I mean, if it was easy and always possible, then we would have a lot less conflict. But there's a way to do that. There's a way to do that. And that would take me, you have to be here for the next talk. It would take me an hour to do it.
Our past experiences and expectations create your emotions.
Yes.
So the way to come out of this is first accepting the situation.
Yes.
So we need to accept first the situation, whether it is good or bad, because whatever happened, situation we cannot change.
Right.
And then first accepting, then you are not angry or you won't. Then you work on objectively what can be changed.
Right.
So first thing is, we need to accept the situation.
Absolutely. And accepting the situation is the only logical thing to do. But the emotional reaction makes it an illogical response. So let's say that somebody comes to me and says, I should not have done that in the past. Well, okay, let's get you in a time machine, make you go back in time, and then you can do something different. Of course, we don't have a time machine. You've already done what you've done. So the reaction that I should have done something different is actually illogical. But that's just how the way the brain works, producing those emotions. The shoulds and should not have, and not accepting those things doesn't make sense, but that's just how our brain works. And I say that cautiously because I don't want people to now have a negative emotional reaction to feeling what they're feeling, because that of course gets you back in the spiral. You have to say, well, I feel this way about what I did, and that's okay. Thank you.
Sukhartaha sarvajantunam sarvaha karma pravruttayah. Throughout our physical existence on earth, doesn't matter who you are, man, woman, believer or not believer, strong, weak, educated, uneducated, well achieved or whoever, whatever. We all are in search of happiness, joy. In search of happiness, we are always interacting with this world, external world. As far as these interactions are concerned, during this interaction, this important part that works with us, that emotions. Dr. Rajiv Parinjaji has really gave us so many different ways that how emotions work, and what is the interaction with these emotions, and how one can regulate these emotions. And it is like natural. Whenever you see something, that interaction against these emotions, one has to accept it and regulate it, and how one can make some changes and how one can carry on. It was really well explained. And as far as all these emotions are concerned, our great sages of yore, and primarily our Patanjali Maharaj, who gave us this wonderful Yoga Sutras. There are very few Yoga Sutras, but this the first part that starts with Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha. In order to, doesn't matter, let us say if you are not spiritually inclined, if you are not religious, but yes, your goal or achieve your purpose is this just to be happy and you want to make money, doesn't matter what your goal is. But you always are dealing with this chitta vritti. And in order to do this, chitta vritti plays a key role. And in order to do this, how one can put his or her sincere efforts, that is what Sage Patanjali ji taught us in his first initial sutra, that Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha. And in this Chitta Vritti Nirodha, he elaborates that how Chitta Vritti and how one can do this, how one can regulate, and what are the different pranayams, and what is the technique that is very efficient to achieve one's respective goals, that can be learned from our wonderful tradition. This is a wonderful platform in our temple. With the help of our talented devotees, we'll be happy to share many more such great tools as pranayama, breathing techniques, as well as many more other tools that will enable us to achieve our goals. Without further ado, on behalf of our entire community, I sincerely thank Dr. Rajiv Parinjaji for his an awesome, enlightening, informative presentation on neuroscience and emotion. Can you please give them a big hands? He has given altogether 3 presentations. There are 2 more, and in the subsequent presentation, he is going to talk about the communication. As we all know, I think in my this 55 years of my life as a priest living with the community and the devotees for the last 25 years in this community. Prior to this, I was dealing in South Africa for 5 years, and on a daily basis, not only I'm doing these prayers and pujas and artis, I'm in constant connection with the devotees of all age, starting from very tiny age to the person who is taking their last breath due to their age. And I have experienced and seen in terms of emotions and in terms of all the problems that even that includes myself also. I'm also included in that. That when we are dealing with this world, emotions play a key role, and in order to avoid some problems in our life, communication is a key role. Doesn't matter in what stage you are, doesn't matter in what field you are. Communicate, even in our family also, we all can resolve or maybe avoid so many problems as a result of communication. So in the subsequent presentation, Dr. Rajiv Parinjaji is going to focus on communication. Am I right, sir?
That's right.
Yes. So we encourage you to please come forward and take an advantage what he has, some meaningful, and how we all can regulate all our emotions and how we can prevent the problems that we face in our life. In continuation of giving this educational or medical talks, our next person will be Dr. Purvi Ben Saraya. She is going to give. Again, December again?
No, we changed that. Yeah.
Oh, Badli?
No.
Oh. Okay, so we'll just, as soon as we finalize, we will have this. So our next big event is on December 4th. We will be doing Bhagavad Gita recitation. This is a unique in the nature because our young devotees who memorize this entire Bhagavad Gita, and approximately this whole entire chanting will last for 2.5 hours to 3 hours. And it really amazes me that how these young devotees can continuously do a wonderful Gita chanting. For whatever reason, if you are unable to come physically in the temple and be part of the chantings, For your convenience, we will be putting this available on the online. So while you are doing all your other chores or other activities and be part of this Bhagavad Gita chanting, you are encouraged to log into our Zoom account, and you'll be also happy to see our young devotees how they are chanting correct, crystal clear pronunciation from 1 to the last 700th verse of the Bhagavad Gita. Please be part of our Bhagavad Gita recitation. Today's delicious lunch has been sponsored by Vaishali Ji Sinha and our own speaker Rajiv Parinjaji. Can you please give them big hands? Thank you. We appreciate you are giving your talent, treasure, and also at the same time providing this food. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. We'll recite Mahamrutyunjay mantra 5 times, and immediately after we'll just do Aarti. Thank you all for coming for this wonderful presentation. Together, Mahamrutyunjay mantra. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Muksiyamamritaad. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Muksiyamamritaad. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Muksiyamamritaad. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Muksiyamamritaad. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan